Gdje prijatelj te vjera čeka, gdje postoji ona tvoja rijeka. Snovi na putu i miris davnina, tu je tu srcu domovina. Radio Mrežnica.
Počinje podcast Mrežnica. Želim vam dobrodošlicu. S našim današnjim gostom ponovno izlazimo izvan hrvatskih granica. Ovog puta idemo na Cipar. A naš gost je jedan od najpoznatijih ciparskih novinara, Christoforou. Vjerojatno je najgledaniji ciparski novinar na svijetu i čovjek čiji se YouTube kanal ističe po analizama geopolitičkih događaja i to na jedan apsolutno poseban način. Pravi boom napravio je na početku rata u Ukrajini, a njegove analize prate doista mnogi diljem svijeta. Christoforou za sebe kaže da je geopolitički analitičar, dijelom novinar, a dijelom onaj koji interpretira sve što nam se događa. A zašto nam je zanimljiv? Naime, djetinjstvo je proveo u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama, Meksiku, ali i tadašnjem Sovjetskom savezu. Na sjajan način Christoforou povezuje konce događaja na svjetskoj razini. Mnogi ga smatraju jednim od najkvalitetnijih nezavisnih analitičara trenutno na svijetu. Gotovo redovito poziva na zdrav razum u svemu što čuje, ali i na potrebu da se priču rasvijetli iz više uglova. A kada se tome pridoda da svoj YouTube kanal radi zajedno s Aleksandrom Mercurisom, inače britansko-grčkim novinarom, onda su zanimljive analize zagarantirane. Vrlo rijetko daje intervjue, pa onda možemo sada slobodno reći da uz profesora Jeffreya Sacksa, potomcinog bivšeg analitičara Larrya C. Johnsona, Christoforou postaje naš treći dragulj u nizu stranih gostiju u podcastu Mrežnica. Hvala vam što nas gledate. Thank you for joining us today. So, as you always say, let's talk about some news.
Yes, let's talk about some.
Yes, what is the biggest news so far in this 2025 is that Trump's arrival and his carrot and stick approach.
Trump, without a doubt, is the biggest news of 2025, and everyone's trying to figure out Trump. Everyone is trying to figure out Trump. Maybe Trump's trying to figure out Trump as well, to be quite honest. But that's without a doubt the biggest news of 2025.
Well, I said Trump uses the carrot and stick approach. Who will benefit the most from it?
Oh, yeah, the carrot and stick approach. Definitely Europe the EU is on the losing side. That's without a doubt. But I think they were on the losing side even before the Trump inauguration and the Trump win. I think that's been very clear for the last 6 months that the EU is on the losing side. Who's going to benefit? We'll see. Trump would like to say that the American people are going to benefit because his policy is America first. At least that's what he's telling everybody. So for him, if you go by what he said during the campaign, the side that will benefit the most is going to be America and the American people. But that remains to be seen. We have to see what he's going to implement as far as policy. We're only about a week and a few days into this, so we've got a long way to go. But definitely, I would say on the losing end is the European Union. Of course, you have the conflict in Ukraine and everything that is going on there. But as far as Trump's policy, tariffs, trade, the way he views the world, I think Europe, especially the EU, is in big trouble.
Yeah, it means that Europe is now left to its own devices after Trump's arrival, right?
Yeah. I think the European Union, they burned all of their bridges under Biden. They believed that Biden was going to deliver a victory in Ukraine. They believed that Russia was going to collapse. They upset the Russians, but they're not on good terms with BRICS either. They're not on good terms with China. They're not on good terms with Africa and much of the global South. And they have a lack of leadership, especially in the big EU countries. France is a mess. Germany is deindustrialized. and things are not going to get better. The commission does not have the proper leadership. And to be quite honest, it does look like Trump is not very interested in Europe. He wasn't interested in Europe during his first term either, though. This should not have been a surprise to the EU leadership or to anyone in Europe. Trump is not didn't get along with the Europeans during his first term, and it looks like in the second term, he's definitely not looking to deal with Europe or to put Europe top of the agenda. So it's going to be a tough 4 years for Europe and for the EU.
And how will the EU leadership handle that?
Not very good. Not very good. We already see that they're running into a lot of problems. They don't know how to handle Trump. They don't know how to deal with this type of politician because Trump is a very unorthodox type of politician. He's not the type of politician that the EU leaders are used to dealing with. They are used to dealing with a certain type of politician. And anything that goes beyond that, you can see that they're having a lot of trouble trying to formulate some type of approach or policy with the Trump administration. So they're going to have a very hard time dealing with the Trump White House. You can see that that Ursula von der Leyen and the Commission, they're trying to signal to the Trump administration, we're ready to talk. We'll do whatever you want us to do. We will buy whatever gas you want us to buy, LNG, whatever price you put it at. Just please don't place tariffs on us. That's pretty much the message that they're sending to Trump. But Trump isn't really listening because everything coming out of Trump's Trump administration is tariffs, tariffs, and more tariffs. And some countries are going to be able to deal with the tariffs. They'll be able to retaliate. The European Union is not in a position to retaliate or in a position to deal with the tariffs.
On the other hand, we have more sanctions for Russia, but Russia is getting stronger. So sanctions are not working. Is Europe disgraced?
Europe is unable to admit defeat. They're unable to admit that Project Ukraine was a terrible mistake. The political leadership has decided that it's better to escalate. It's better to see everything crash when it comes to Ukraine than to admit defeat. Admitting defeat would mean that they have to admit that the last 4 years to their people, to their citizens, each member state would have to admit that we made a mistake. We caused inflation. We caused energy prices to increase. We ruined our relationship with Russia and effectively with BRICS and with the East. We put all our eggs in one basket, which was the United States, and we messed up. They're unable to admit this. They will never admit this. So it seems like they've taken the policy that it's better to escalate and to continue to try and fight this war than to try to fix things. This is actually pretty expected from politicians, I would say. This shouldn't come as a surprise to people that understand how politicians operate, the mind of a politician.
Let's talk about Project Ukraine. You mentioned this project. What do you predict? How will the situation in Ukraine unfold?
How it unfolds is, I think that's the million-dollar question, how everything's going to unfold. One thing is certain, and I believe everyone understands this now, which is that Russia has won. Ukraine is not going to win this. What that means, we're going to have to wait another 3 to 6 months. Will the Trump administration be able to negotiate something with Russia? We will see. Russia's terms are very clear. They've spelled them out multiple times. Is the Trump administration listening? I think time will tell. Whether Trump actually manages a negotiation with Russia, that will then dictate whether we're looking at a negotiated settlement or a military settlement. If they can't get to a negotiation, then the most likely outcome will be a military solution, which will mean a capitulation from Ukraine, perhaps a complete takeover of Ukraine. I don't know. I don't know what the Kremlin is thinking. I don't know how far they want to go. But if no deal can be made with Russia from the United States, then we are looking at a military solution. And of course, this has a lot of implications for the U.S., for the European Union, and for NATO, because effectively what you're looking at is a NATO defeat. Because Ukraine, another thing that everyone has now understood is that Ukraine is without a doubt a proxy of NATO. It cannot survive without NATO. It cannot survive without the West's money. It cannot survive without the West's weapons. This is going to be a defeat for NATO.
What do you think? Are warmongers still active in Ukraine and on the other side?
Yes, yes, they have power. They absolutely have power, but there is a lot of discussion on various channels, Ukrainian media, that there is a type of power struggle right now in Kiev. A lot of people from the very hardline Bandera factions in Ukraine to some more moderate factions, they're not happy with Zelensky, and they are starting to discuss possible options. A lot of this is bubbling up because we've seen the money, some of the money, not all the money, but some of the money in the foreign aid being put on freeze by the Trump administration. Now, this freeze is not going to be, in my opinion, they will not be able to reverse this. There's going to be no way after 90 days of freeze of money that was going to Ukraine to pay for the media, to pay for the NGOs, to pay for various public and civil servant positions and salaries. There's no way that Trump is going to say after 90 days or 100 days, okay, I'm going to restart the money to Ukraine. Because if he does this, the American people are going to be furious. The American people, you saw this in the election, they don't want any more money going to Ukraine, especially after everything we saw happen in the United States with the hurricanes, recently with the LA fires, with what happened in Hawaii. The American people don't want to see any more money going to Ukraine. So Trump is not going to be in a position to restart the cash flow back to Kiev. So I think they're now starting to realize the money stopped. And when the money has stopped, they're looking at Zelensky and they're not happy. When the money stops flowing, someone's going to have to pay the price.
That's right. Give me more money, give me more weapons, right?
Give me more money, give me more weapons, and we're talking about Ukraine. There's a lot of oligarchs. There's a lot of interest. A lot of people have benefited from the hundreds and hundreds of billions that have been pouring into the country. A lot of the money has been lost. It wasn't audited. A lot of people don't know where it went. Trump has said he's going to audit. He's going to have an audit to see where the money's going. We're already seeing the defense minister of Ukraine possibly being under investigation.
That's right.
This is, people are starting to form factions. They're starting to backstab each other. We're going to see some very, very interesting, very volatile times in Kiev, and perhaps Zelensky's run his course.
How do you predict his future, his fate?
This psycho boy. Putin said in an interview, he said it twice actually in the past couple of weeks in 2 interviews, that according to the Russian administration and their legal experts, they consider Zelensky to be illegitimate. This is what they say. They say they've studied the Constitution. They've gone through the Ukrainian Constitution. Zelensky should have had an election last year. He canceled those elections. There's no provision in the Constitution which says that the president, if martial law is declared, the president can cancel elections. The parliament can remain. The president cannot. There has to be elections. This is according to Putin. Putin's a lawyer. He has legal experts. Russia's position that they've set out is Zelensky's illegitimate. So you want us to negotiate. President Trump, you want to have talks. Who are we going to have talks with? Who's going to sign a negotiated settlement? Is it going to be Zelensky? Well, he can't sign a settlement because he's illegitimate. So who's it going to be? Are we going to have elections in Ukraine? Well, who's going to call those elections? Is the parliament going to call those elections? If the parliament calls those elections, then they admit that Zelensky is indeed an illegitimate president. So you've got this whole dynamic now in Ukraine where the Russians are calling into question the legitimacy of the government, and they're signaling to Trump, we're ready to talk. Absolutely. We're ready to negotiate. But who are we going to talk to? Who are we going to talk with?
So great mess. Let us
It's a mess.
Let us shift back to European Union. Sovereign forces are rising in Europe. The elections in Germany are approaching and AfD is growing. How do you think this will end?
AfD has the momentum. I think there's no doubt about it. The oxygen in the room is completely with Alice Weidel. Absolutely. Whether you agree with AfD or you don't agree with AfD, there's no doubt that they now have the eyes are all on them. It's going to be difficult if they were to place very, very well in the election. Second place, first place will probably be very difficult. The CDU, I would imagine, is going to be the number one party, though the recent polls show that they are dropping. They are absolutely sinking in support, as is Olaf Scholz and the SPD. The AfD, unfortunately, whatever position they take in the election, the other parties have pledged that they're not going to work with the AfD in a coalition. This is the problem that they have. Now, we still have a long way to go. I expect that there's going to be some sort of intel investigations into the AfD. I imagine they're going to try to dig up some scandals. I imagine the other parties are once again going to call for them to be banned or to be canceled. I think that's too late now. The AfD, if they do place well, say 20, 22, 24%, it's going to be an earthquake. Will they be able to govern? No. I don't imagine them being in the government. But a very clear message is going to be sent to the German political elites and to the European Union political class. This is a big deal. It's a very big deal what's happening in Germany.
And also they have a very powerful friend, Elon Musk.
Yes. Elon Musk is pushing hard for AfD.
But on the other
he's at their rallies. Video conference, he's at their rallies. Yeah.
Yes, he is shaking Europe.
He is shaking Europe. And you have to imagine that if he's shaking Europe, he's doing it with the consent or with Trump, with President Trump. I mean, obviously, there's some coordination there, which once again, you go back to the current leadership in Europe. Trump does not like them. He doesn't want to deal with them. It's obvious. And so Elon Musk is shaking things up.
So, but Poland wants to be the big dog, the watchdog in the EU. So, and push Germany aside. How possible is that?
I think Poland's miscalculating. I think they're absolutely miscalculating. I think if there's one person that has emerged as the leader of the European Union with the Trump administration, it's Viktor Orban. Now,
Okay.
Hungary's a small country, but it's absolutely punching above its weight. Orban bet on the right person during the elections. He went full 100% for Trump. If Harris would have won, Hungary would have been in big trouble. He made his bet and he won. Every other leader in the European Union, most countries, I won't say all, most countries in the European Union, at least the big ones, they bet fully on Harris. Openly, they bet openly on Harris. They lost. Now, Poland believes that they have a good relationship with the Trump administration. Trump definitely likes Poland. In his first administration, he had a soft spot for Poland. Unfortunately, I don't think he has that feeling with Donald Tusk. I don't think it's there with Tusk. So I think that Poland trying to maneuver its way to become the big force in Europe is a miscalculation. I think Poland is a big country, but it's still not economically as powerful as France, Germany, or even Italy. So I think the one person that could benefit, that seems to be making a good shift towards Trump, is Meloni in Italy. I think she's realized, I'm done with Ursula. I aligned myself with Ursula during the Biden administration, but now I see where things are going, so I need to cozy up to Trump and to Elon Musk.
Yeah, of course. She likes she likes
Yes,
Trump,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
Elon too. Okay, Europe is in economic crisis. Inflation is rising. Are dark times ahead? A
Tough
lot of work,
times.
a lot of work, little money, little progress.
With the problem that I think the EU faces, and I say this as someone from Greece, from Cyprus, I believe the size of, I think these types of countries, Greece, Croatia, Hungary,
Hungary.
these mid-tier sized EU countries, there's only so much we can do as far as trying to get Europe back on track, the EU back on track, even if we have a good economy, even if we see some growth. Unfortunately, the way the EU has been set up is that you have to have the big countries to carry most of the load. And we're looking at Germany, and we're looking at France, and then we look at Italy, and then maybe you go down the line and you could say Spain and etc. But if the German economy is deindustrializing and it's in the state that it's in, I really don't see how the European Union can get out of this economic mess. I don't really see a path forward, especially when you consider that tariffs are most likely coming from the US. I don't want to say it's definite, but if you go by what Trump has said, tariffs are coming. Europe has cut itself off from the one partner that provided it economic and resource competitiveness, and that was Russia. Russia was the EU's hinterland. It was what powered Germany. It was what kept Germany competitive. Now all of Russia's resources and energy are going to where? Going to China. China's going to get more competitive than it already is. It's going to get more powerful. Europe has lost this. It's cut it off with sanctions and physically. It's physically blown up the pipeline, so it's physically
Just like
cut.
pipeline, right?
Yes.
So-
The dangers, just one more thought, the danger that not many people are talking about, and I think everyone in Europe needs to be aware of, is that if Trump follows through on this protectionist, this Fortress America, this sphere of influence America policy, and maybe a year or two into his presidency says, you know what, I need to safeguard the US's energy resources. And I could really see Trump doing this, saying LNG, I'm going to put a stop on LNG going to other countries, to Europe. Then I think Europe is in very, very big trouble.
And who can be blamed for this?
Ursula, 100%. The European Commission,
Just
100%.
Ursula.
Germany, Olaf Scholz, Annalena Baerbock, Robert Habeck. Absolutely. Emmanuel Macron. This is why they're very, the way they talk right now, Olaf Scholz, Ursula von der Leyen, is very deceptive, because they've come out with speeches over the past month and they say Russia cut off the gas to Europe. Russia stopped the flow of energy. It's an outright lie. It's a lie.
Mhm.
Russia has always said, even to this day, Putin has said, I will turn on. There's one pipeline in Nord Stream. We can turn it on, but it has to come from Europe. They decided that they would cut off Russia for many reasons, but they also thought that the sanctions and the cutting off of energy would deliver a regime change in Moscow. They had no understanding of how Russia works, and they let their Russophobia and their hatred of Russia consume them. And even to this day, it consumes them.
So
We're paying. They're very emotional.
we are paying our debt.
Yes, exactly.
What do you think will happen in the Middle East? Now, the US stands by
Yes.
Israel. We see that the funding for Israel and Egypt continues. Other funding has been cut off.
This is going to be an interesting one for Trump. There are two schools of thought, I believe, as far as the Middle East is concerned. The one thought is that Trump is going to try to make the ceasefire hold, and he's going to try to push for some sort of stability in the Middle East. There's the other thought, which believes that Trump is going to side with Israel. He's going to continue to build on a very good relationship that he already has with Israel, even though with Netanyahu it has been touch and go. They got along, then they had a falling out, then they got along, then they had a falling out. Now Netanyahu is going to visit Trump. We'll see what's going to happen. But there's the other thought, which believes that after the first phase of the three-phase ceasefire that we have between Israel and Hamas, after the first phase is over, then things are going to start up again. And in this instance, Trump is going to completely back Netanyahu and the hardliners in Israel. We're going to have to wait and see this. It's going to be a tough ceasefire to hold. I really believe it's going to be a tough ceasefire to hold. But a lot depends on the Trump administration's thinking. Do they want the conflict to start up again in the Middle East while they're trying to get a very ambitious America First agenda moving? A conflict in the Middle East, the continuation of the conflict in Ukraine could derail Trump's domestic policy. We're going to have to wait and see.
Do you think Israel is creating a greater Israel with a little help under the sponsorship of the US?
A lot of people believe this.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe the goal is a greater Israel. I'm not so sure yet. I mean, I think we're gonna have to see if this ceasefire, if Trump can keep this ceasefire together. This is something that I just don't know yet. And does he want to push for a conflict with Iran? Right now, I believe that he wants an economic confrontation with Iran. In other words, he wants to use economic tools and sanctions to try and get some sort of collapse of Iran. I don't think he wants a military confrontation with Iran. Netanyahu absolutely wants a military conflict with Iran. What we saw in Syria is with the collapse of Syria, we've seen that Israel moved to a certain point, but they didn't go any further, which means that they have created a type of buffer zone, a safety zone, but obviously they didn't want to stretch it any further, which does signal that perhaps they understand some of their limitations militarily, which would run counter to a greater Israel. But I think we have to wait and see. A lot depends, I believe, on the first year of the Trump administration. That will dictate where everything's going to move.
Magic word Trump, right?
Yeah, especially with the Middle East.
Yeah.
Especially with the Middle East, a lot depends on Trump.
Do you think Trump will take Greenland?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I like this answer.
Yes. I don't think there's much. If he wants it, I don't think there's much Denmark can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, at this moment, how would you describe EU policy?
Confused, weak, too consumed with Russia, Russophobic, too consumed. They need to get out of this Ukraine mess. I don't think that this was this whole idea of Ukraine swallowing up Ukraine, even getting Ukraine into the European Union. Forget NATO, even getting it into the European Union. This is nonsense. European Union is not ready for this, and they will not be ready for this in 2030. EU member states are not prepared to take in a country, even if we get a peace deal in Ukraine and a ceasefire. Let's just say Russia says, okay, let's have a ceasefire along the front line. The European Union is not ready for this expansion. They're not ready for Moldova. They're not ready for Ukraine. This is nonsense. The European Union has drifted far, far away from an economic union which is what it was and what it should be. And they've now moved on to a geopolitical project. And this madness has to stop, because if it doesn't stop, then the member states and the citizens of the member states are going to pay a price with their pocketbook, with their money. They're going to pay a price.
And it hurts.
It hurts everybody.
Yeah.
It hurts everybody. And they need to stop. They need to stop this expansion. Sometimes you have to take a step back and just put a pause, put a pause and fix your union, fix the economies, stop the constant push to expand, because it's not working. Moldova, Ukraine, they're not even remotely close to meeting the requirements of joining the European. They're not even 20 years away. They're not even 30 years away. This has to stop.
Well, you have been informing viewers on your YouTube channel for years, but the real breakthrough came with the start of the war in Ukraine, right? Your viewers say that you are a breath of fresh air and someone who talks about current events with a touch of humor, but sometimes cynicism. Sorry. When you look back on that time now, how would you describe it?
Difficult. This has been a difficult 3-4 years. Not
Difficult
for
times?
me. I mean, I think for everyone involved, obviously in the conflict, difficult for the people involved in the conflict on both sides. It's been the change that we see in the world today has come from the conflict in Ukraine, and it was a completely unnecessary conflict. I mean, the way I deal with it is, and the way I deal with it as I'm delivering the news is, yes, with a touch of humor, cynicism, sarcasm. We deal with very terrible topics, but we try to make it as engaging as possible in order to deal with these terrible topics. Unfortunately, it's been a hard 3-4 years, and it's not going to get better, I believe, for Europeans. I think it's going to continue to get harder and harder, especially on the economic side of things. Eventually, Ukraine is going to wrap up. Whatever that's going to be, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this will resolve. But it has been, the change has come from Ukraine and from this conflict. The rise of BRICS, Russia and China getting closer together, the fall of the European Union, the end of the neoliberal Biden White House, the America First policy. It's all come from Ukraine. This was such a bad idea. It was such a bad idea, and it didn't need to happen. Russia, over the last 10 years, presented multiple plans to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. All the way to December 2021, they presented a plan to the Biden White House, and the Biden White House didn't answer it. This didn't have to happen, but it did.
But it did, right?
Yeah.
What is life like in Cyprus?
Cyprus is small. It's small, so
Nice weather.
calm. It's nice weather. It's calm. Obviously, we feel the effects of everything that's happening in the world. There's a lot of inflation. Prices are going up. The cost of living is going up. The property prices are going up. We're also in the middle of the region of the Middle East in a way. So we're very close to everything that happened in Syria, everything that's happening in Israel and Gaza. So it's very close to us. So we feel those effects as well. But, in Cyprus, I think everyone is hoping for some stability. I would say not even improvement, just some stability would be welcome.
Yeah. Have you ever been in Croatia?
No, but I will be arriving very soon.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Most to Zagreb.
Oh, Zagreb. Great.
Yes.
Then we can expect your walks through Croatia.
Yes.
Yes,
I
it
hope
would be
I hope it's a good city to walk and talk about news. I've never
would-
been, so I hope it's a good walking city.
Yeah, it would be great if you could walk around our beautiful country and film your vlogs. So Zagreb is your destination.
Well, yes, for it's going to be a winter trip, so I imagine Zagreb would be the place to start out.
So very soon.
Yes, very soon.
Okay, I hope you
Yes.
will be our guest again, and I hope
It would be
we
my
will
pleasure.
meet each other.
It would be my pleasure.
Alex,
Thank you very much.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you so much. Bye bye.